So we talked about developing power in the initial shot. Has anybody ever taken or watched the videos from Paul Bellatrix's for transitioning and recovering? Just one guy? Just one guy? Okay, yeah, raise your hands when I ask a question. Okay, he talks about that teardrop, right? And that teardrop is a shape from point of impact in a circle back to the point of impact, or a different point of impact. But it's always from where the last blow landed, recovery, transition into the next shot. That's all very good. What he talks about, and what I'm going to talk about, is the way your body makes that transition. Right? We talked about, this is your flat snap shot. Hips, shoulders, arms, right? That transition has to recock all of those things, and that's what it does. With practice, you learn that that transition isn't always, doesn't have to be this big thing. What he's talking about is like a kata. This is an exaggerated movement to demonstrate the validity. What you're trying to learn to do is this. And the teardrop is about that big. But you still got to do all of this other stuff back here. Right? So it's not just recovering the sword and moving it in this arbitrary shape, right? It's about bringing the hips and the shoulders back online so you can fire another shot. Well, with that teardrop, you still have to recover that sword somewhat. Mostly, I say, you're going to have to come back to some degree back towards your starting point. And this is pretty much everybody's starting point. About a hand span in front of your shoulder. Because if you're throwing that shot, if you're like a shot put, your mass has got to be in front of the thing you're pushing with. If your hand's up here and you're throwing that, what's happening? Well, you feel that tension in your shoulder and your elbow. Now you're using all of those muscles to drag the sword back into line. Okay, so here, right in this zone here, is where pretty much everybody's shots come from. Where was I going? Oh, the transition, right. So you see this big transitional movement, right? But then you slow it down, you speed it up, and you make the transition smaller. Pretty soon, it's that. From here, there. Okay? So that body movement is still important. What you're trying to learn, and when we talk about practicing generating power, you're trying to generate enough power with as little movement as possible. The better you understand the movements, the easier it is to refine them. Bring them down to something you can do very quickly. Okay? Any questions so far? Any questions about anything? What's my favorite color? Which one? Okay. Now, anybody who I don't know who comes and asks me, what can you tell me about my fighting? Well, I wasn't paying attention to your fight. I wasn't watching you just now with an eye towards what can I improve on my opponent. It's really not my goal usually. But yeah, what I really try to do with my opponent is make him as horizontal as possible. So that's where my mind is usually when I'm fighting. I start everybody and I maintain that the SCA really repeatable, dependable shots really come down to about 4 shots. There are other shots, but I tend to put them in the trick shot category. So, okay, what's number one? Everybody, flat snap. Absolutely, because that is the easiest one to demonstrate the body mechanic. Everybody understands throwing a punch, right? So that's your first thing. Hip, shoulders, arm, rolling, grip, all of that goes into your first shot. And that's one. Now, that shot, what's your name? Griff? So, what I consider this shot, I consider this shot and this shot the same shot. Why? The body mechanics and the sword dynamic is exactly the same. Doesn't matter which direction the sword is oriented in, right? This actually gives me a little more momentum in the sword because it travels a little bit longer off. But it's mine. Because I can't follow through with it as easy. Because when follow through with it, I have to push past my opponent. So I want to get that little extra momentum in the initial shot. So this shot covers pretty much every target from about here all the way up to there. That's number one. How many shots do you, how many times out of 10 you kill your opponent with that shot? Like just one bang.
Me, almost never with that shot.
Really?
Well, I set up like, I fight with a weapon in his hand. That's my setup.
Oh, all right. Who fights with a real, with one sword like a regular? Oh. See, I say that because I'm a two-handed fighter too. I got some leverage there. What was that?
I'm a two-sword guy too.
Okay. All right.
Probably 8 or 9 out of 10.
8 or 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
The skill is getting the guy to give me that shot. That's the skill. But I want to be able to throw. Giving me the shot means giving me a gap that big. Okay, so that's what I'm practicing that shot over and over for, so that I can hit the shot when he gives it to me, which means I can take it out of that little slot. That's what I'm practicing. So that's the number one shot. And honestly, you can rise up through the SCA ranks just using that one shot and transitioning from one side to the other. A lot of fighters do that. That's their first 2 years of fighting. That's all it is. Bang, 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 bang. That's it. And you can have a certain amount of success with it. So it's the go-to shot. Okay. What do you think is the second shot?
Wrap.
No. Not the way I teach. Reverse. I call it a reverse. Okay. And that's going from this shot, right? This is a close range shot to this. Okay. That's a completely different body mechanic. Because now instead of the hip moving forward this way, the hip moves back the other way. Okay? So now you've got this shot that covers all these targets. Now you can transition from this shot to back again. So that's why I teach that as a second shot. Well, now there's a couple more years of fighting. You can depend on those two shots. Right? So we're about 5 years now where you really haven't needed to learn another shot. But most everybody learns what everybody else is talking about, the wrap. Now the wrap uses the same body mechanic as number one, right? The difference is in the sword mechanic, okay? Now the wrap, and I differentiate between a wrap and a thumb leader. To me, a thumb leader is just reorienting the sword with a number one. I find that very difficult to use if I don't put a lot of body movement into it. If I don't completely change the angle of the shot, I can't really throw a thumb leader without a glance. And I dare you to try a thumb leader with a real edged weapon. Or anything that has a flat and a lateral flex, try a thumb leader. Yeah. A wrap is much more reliable. Across the plane of the body, right? Goes outside of the plane of the body and rotates. And it rotates at about the point where I can point straight. Because that's where it's easiest on my wrist. Right? So I'm going to rotate it there. Right? Now that shot is good for all targets to about there. And then you're into 6'4" territory. Right? I'm not going to throw that against a guy who's my height or tall. Really. No. Because traction is vital. If you're up in the air, you can't change anything. Now you're 0G fighting, right? Okay, so that's 3. A reverse. Which, because it's the hips, reverse it. So it's 1, 2, 3. What do you think the fourth one is? 3. Nope. That's number 1.
Camera?
No. That's 5.
Molinet?
Molinet, who I teach is the 4th shot. And it's kind of advanced. You know, guys been fighting, you learn it early, okay. Most guys use it as a third blow in a combination of here, here. Right? Everybody throw that combination? No? Can you? You know how? Okay, well. So with that Moulinet, what's tricky about that is, and why I teach it last, because in all these other shots, you're learning how your sword works, where the balance point is, where the rotational point is, where the momentum is best to work, right? Because when you get to this fourth shot, you're having to convert this movement into this rotation. Right? Because a blade in a Moulinet moves vertically. Watch what I'm doing. Right? From here, how to throw it from here. So that when you're back in this position, it's even easier. Right? I don't want to teach somebody, okay, start like this so you can throw the Moulinet. Because actually, when you're here, it's really the only shot you got. So if my opponent walks up to me like this, I know what his first shot's going to be. Right? He's got to bring his elbow and his hand forward. Okay? So those are the four, what I call the four cardinal blows. Pretty much everything we do, whatever target you're using, is a variation on those. I mean, okay, this may be heresy. I don't know about Trimaris. I call bullshit on the retique. You know what that is? Right? This. Oh, I love that. Actually, I can't even deliver it.
I can do it either, but I don't think people can.
Without changing the grip on my sword.
Yeah, no, something's footwork, something. But
you know what? If I can throw that shot, stuff that. So
it's the footwork.
What?
You can't bring your wrist that way. It's the footwork. You gotta do it with the footwork. You gotta turn the tip.
Well, I mean, like this.
Right. Yeah.
But if I can do this, I can do this. And it's stronger. And I don't worry about it.
I can roll it further over and get over the block.
The further you roll it over, the more likely you are to go flat. Okay, just saying.
I've also seen behind this leg that has some
Trick shot. I call it, I've done it, but I call it a trick shot. I've got a shot where, and this I learned studying some Thorgrimsson's videos. I remember where he's from, Tier maybe? Anyway, he throws this weird shot. This is, this is a weird shot, okay, but I'm going to show it to you just as sort of a novel. Drop the sword behind me. Oh yeah. Right? And if I'm doing it at full speed, I would go for this, right across the face with that trick shot. That requires me to be in exactly the right spot in the shield, not bothering my sword arm too much. We can get into those later on in the afternoon session after I've gone through all this formal stuff. We can talk about we can talk about individual techniques and little trick shots and little fakes and stuff like that that I like to do. It goes down behind your head. Same shot. Well, I don't bring my hand up right here. Same shot. Okay. Okay, so last word before we end this session. Hell work. I don't want to take away anybody belief in hell work. But hell work has limited utility. What are the things you can learn from a hell?
Accuracy, power, sword control.
What? Power, accuracy, precision. Precision again. Precision is the single thing you can learn most from a power. You can learn how to transition blows. No, you cannot learn range from a pellet. You can learn what your own range is. You know how close to stand to that pellet. Once you've learned that, your opponent's not going to stand there before you. Right? Range isn't just knowing how far I have to reach. Understanding range, that the skill of range is knowing I'm in my range, but I'm not quite in his range yet. Now I'm in his range. That's that much. The best fighters, that's what they're fighting for. That's why they spend a lot of time not quite in guard, just they're fighting for that last inch of range. That inch where now I'm in range, I've got a fraction of a second to make a move that he can't counter while I'm in range. Because if I give him more than that, he's going to be out of range, or he's going to be stepping up, and my chances are gone. So what we're looking for when we're in that posturing mode is, I'm looking for, both of us are looking for that instant where I'm in range and in position to throw a shot, and he's not. Now against two very skilled opponents, how often does that come along? Rarely. That's why it takes him 3 minutes to throw the first shot. Because we're looking, we're watching, we're analyzing, we're trying to figure out what are my best chances against that guy. Say that again?
I have my view, but you're still looking for the same moment I am. It doesn't matter about the advantage of longest range, right?
Longer range gives you an advantage, no question. Because you can start your offense before you have to worry about your defense. But not much longer. So, yes, we're both still doing the same thing. If I can tell just by when we line up, after 35 years, I can usually tell whether my opponent's range is longer or shorter than mine. I'm going to try and get you to commit to some stuff just to confirm for myself your range. So I'll spend a lot of time just, like I was talking about before, leaning over my left foot, trying to get you to throw that shot. Well, I want whatever shot you're giving first.
It doesn't matter the way I have.
Yeah.
I just want you to move.
One thing I want to know is how much distance do you have to travel to hit me, and vice versa. So I'll start out here. That first shot comes in. I'm not even going to try and block it. I'm just going to try and get out of the way of it and see how close the tip passes. Okay.
Feel the breeze.
Right. And there's a bit of a psychological game there too. On a less experienced opponent, I may stand right at that edge of range where they're convinced they got a good 3 inches of stick on me, and they might if I didn't move. But in this position, I can move about 10 inches before I move my feet. Yeah, and that's just that. And I'll let him do it. I'll give him that shot, let him throw the headshot, and just fade back, and fade in again. And there's some psychology there, no question. You whiff on a guy a couple, 3 times, you're like, God damn. Okay? When I first started fighting two-1, this was back in 1981 now, long time ago, back in unrecorded history. Everybody at the time, who was the two-sword guy? Two weapons, excuse me. two weapons. All right. We were taught that two-sword guys, all they got is offense. What you got to do is jump into their jock and hit them with everything you got, and they'll go down because they can't defend themselves. All they got is, they think they got this advantage of firepower. Well, I took that and went, I know, it seems to me like I got just as much defense as a shield. So I practiced really hard. I took a lot of shots. But I practiced being able to stand this close to my opponent and just defend myself. Now that's all I can really do there. Right? If I'm in that close, I have got to be so focused on that guy's weapon or on what it's doing, because I can't give up a leg. You give up a leg as a two-weapon guy, you're done. So I trained myself to be able to stand there face to face with a guy and block everything he threw. Let him do exactly what he was taught. Let him jump in real close and throw this furious storm of blows. And I just stand there and look him in the eye the whole time. And at the end of that furious storm, he's like, you're still there. Yes. Whatever happens after that, he has already started losing. Because in his mind, he's like, I've thrown everything I've got. That's everything I know how to do. And he didn't even flinch. He didn't even blink. Now what? Oh, now you die. Right? So, defense is, we're talking now about offense. Well, this is all about offense. I'm going to talk defense in the second session. Defense is important, and that's why. Okay? Thanks.
Woohoo! You're done.